Today, we're going to talk about this papaya tree. We're going to talk about several varieties of papaya. We're going to talk about how to grow them, okay? And we're also going to talk about one very important subject, which is the flowering and understanding the flowering of the papaya. Okay, so stay tuned, don't go away, and we'll be right back. This is a red lady papaya. There are other types of papaya. There is Tainong 1, Tainong 2, okay? There's also one called Linda. There's another one called TR Hovey, okay? And there's other ones called Maradol, and there's a whole bunch more. The most common ones that are grown in backyards are the red lady papaya. They're also grown commercially, but actually solo in Hawaii, and the other variety called Sunrise are more of a Hawaiian variety. And I'll also talk a little bit about GMO papaya, but the main focus right now is going to be about the red lady papaya, and I'll give you a little bit of information, like I said, about the flowering, okay? Starting at the base of the tree, keep in mind that papaya cannot tolerate absolutely any flooding. So in commercial groves or commercial plantations, you'll see that they've actually excavated to create kind of a canal in front of the rows, and then they're elevated maybe 3 feet up on these mounds, okay? And then they'll also incorporate drip irrigation. I'm not using drip irrigation. I'm building a food forest here, and I'm trying to do things as naturally as possible with the rain, and also avoid watering as much as I can altogether by eventually creating a system that supports itself through permaculture. And I have a heavy mulch, so I barely have to water at all. That's my goal. I'm not there yet, but that's the goal. So I wanted to bring that up because it's important to understand the soil and that it does not flood, okay? The biology of the soil is also very important. You need to have good soil biology. That means you stay away from a bunch of synthetics, chemicals, and fertilizers, okay? The fertilizers that I use here right now are organic type fertilizers. I do have to buy some fertilizers. I like to use one here that's a slightly acidic type, the same one that I use for my coffee plants. And the reason I do that is because I have a little bit higher alkalinity of my soil, and I want to bring the pH down. Papaya likes to have a 5.5 to about 7, which is neutral, pH for the soil. Okay, so we're going to talk about the flowers on the papaya plant. And this is important, and I'm going to give you the best explanation that I can. It's actually a little bit more complicated of a subject, but I'm going to make it as clear and easy to understand as possible. What I'm talking about is the morphology or the arrangement of the flowers. So you have males, you have the females, and you have the hermaphrodites. A male plant, this is not a male plant. This is a plant that has primarily hermaphrodite flowers with some male flowers. And this particular plant, I've noticed, has a very interesting kind of a pattern of the hermaphrodites. It has a larger hermaphrodite and a little smaller hermaphrodite. The smaller hermaphrodite is this one. There's actually a little ovary, and you also have male stamens for pollination right there. So if I wanted to pollinate a plant, I could just pluck that off and go to the stigma. Like right there, there's a stigma, and I could take that pollen and put it on that stigma. Now there's something very interesting here. This is also hermaphrodite, but notice it's larger. And this hermaphrodite has stamen with pollen as well. So we have a female stigma and we have male stamens on one flower. It's not just called hermaphrodite, it's called a perfect flower because both sexes are on that one flower. Now you may have, for example, this arrangement, which is really the same arrangement as that, and this is your hermaphrodite flower here that's going to open up, and it's going to look just like that one, and it's on much shorter. See the stem here, the name of this completely escapes me right now. I've got complete brain damage and I can't remember, but this part right here is very short, okay? And then you have males on the sides, and sometimes these can actually be little hermaphrodites as well. But for the most part, you on the sides, you have occasionally you'll have a hermaphrodite, but here on the sides you have males all around it that can also pollinate the hermaphrodite. So you have males and you have the hermaphrodites. In commercial operations, your goal is to have plants that have hermaphrodites. That's the way they do it now. You want hermaphrodites because they're going to give you a long fruit like this, nice long fruit. And that is what is in demand in the market. So that's what the farmer wants to produce so he can maximize his profits. So anything that comes from a hermaphrodite is going to have a long fruit. On the other hand, let's talk about females. you can have a papaya tree that's loaded with female flowers. And that plant can sometimes set fruit all by itself when there is no pollen available, and you'll get a kind of a round fruit instead of a long one, a round fruit without seeds. That doesn't happen very often, but you can get a seedless papaya. The next thing I want to tell you about is that in order for that female to get production and come out round and have seeds, you need to have a male nearby, or it could be pollinated by a hermaphrodite as well. Now, insects obviously play a role, and you're going to need insects to do the pollination, but the wind can help. But if you've got honeybees, or if you have a variety of moths and insects like that that come around, they can certainly be a huge factor in the production of your plants, the production of the fruit from your plants. So I hope that gives you a little bit better idea. What I did not show you is a female flower, because I don't have a female flower on this. This is the hermaphrodite with these arrangements of flowers that have one large hermaphrodite compared to a female would be much larger. The female would be very large, will look somewhat like this with the stigma, no stamens, okay? And then just a large little ovary that would swell up when pollinated, and then you would have your fruit. That's what becomes the fruit. These guys here, notice there's one with 5 others on the sides. It's a good example. I hope this is on camera. You have some on the sides over here. You can see the arrangements. And on a male, and I'll post a picture of the male, you have much longer flowers that are way out here. And again, I forget the name, but the long, let's call them the stems that are long, because I can't recall the name, would have flowers all over, all males everywhere. And traditionally, if you were planting a field, you would plant, say, 4 of them in the ground, 4 seedlings in the ground. They would all sprout, and then you would not know what you have until they begin to flower. So you'd figure out what you have by looking at that plant's flowers, and then you would destroy, in other words, you would chop down the ones you don't want. So then what you would do is you would get rid of the majority of the males, and you keep like maybe 1 male papaya tree for every 10 of the females that are in the field. So that's how that's done. All right, let's talk a little bit more about growing papaya. One of the most important things that you have to keep in mind is that they like to have a very comfortable environment that has to be ideal. If you stress them out, they're not happy at all. Other trees, fruit-producing trees, depend on a certain amount of stress. Papayas, like bananas, don't like that at all, okay? So you need to really baby these guys in order to get them to give you a quality fruit and to grow healthy and not get full of disease. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the ways you can do that. Number one, we already discussed soil and water. The thing I want to make clear is that they really prefer full sun. Full sun is super important. It's one of the most important things to keep your plant producing sugars, carbohydrates, so you have really good fruit, and that your flowers aren't always falling off and not setting. That has to do with pollination, but also has to do with sufficient light for your tree. Your tree's going to produce for you for about 2 years. It's just not going to stop. It's going to keep continuously producing fruit for about 2 years. It can produce for 10 years, it can produce for 5 years, but it makes no sense. You want to grow your tree for about 2 years at the most. Some people will stretch it to 3 years. Keep your tree young, productive, vigorous, and you'll have lots and lots of fruit that you're going to really enjoy, and you're going to save a lot of money. Now, I want to ask you guys a favor. If you're growing a papaya tree, go ahead and leave a comment down there right below, and also hit the subscribe button and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed our channel here and watching this video. All right, so now we're looking at some papayas that are actually already on the tree, and these papayas are bagged. And you know, why am I bagging this fruit? The reason I'm bagging the fruit is there is a papaya fruit fly. It looks a bit like a wasp, and some people call it a papaya wasp, but it's actually a fruit fly, and it's a nasty little fella that's just trying to produce its next offspring, and it'll come out to the fruit, and it'll actually it's called oviposit. They'll actually lay a little egg. It has a little needle on its butt, and it'll puncture it, and then it'll get those little eggs in there, and then your fruit is kind of messed up. If you ever get a fruit like that, you pick one, it's beautiful color, maybe has some oozing from the all of the white papain. Papain is the white liquid that comes out. It's also used as a meat tenderizer. It has medicinal uses. But anyway, getting back to the fruit fly, it'll inject that in here, and it'll just breed a whole bunch of little maggots basically inside your fruit. Pretty nasty. And then if you do cut into one that hasn't been protected, you're going to get a mouthful of some nasty stuff, and the odor is horrendous. So to protect your fruit, you want to use some type of a bag. Now, you can use something simple like a regular, you can just grab a regular like grocery bag like this, a little plastic bag, and tie that, puncture a couple little holes in it so that you don't get any water build up in there. I like these because you know, they're convenient, they're not expensive at all. You can find them on Amazon and probably in other places too. But the problem is that you got to order good size ones. These are too small. I ordered these just for the purposes of this particular video, as a matter of fact, because I was using just the bags that I just showed you. Another way you can protect your tree from the papaya fruit fly is go out and steal your wife's pantyhose or your girlfriend's pantyhose. Yep, you can. And then you take the pantyhose and you slip it onto the fruit. Hope you can see this. And there's another big one back here. As the fruit begins to grow, it stretches out and it provides protection. Now, people argue with me that, this doesn't work because the fruit fly can still stick this thing. And, you know, maybe you're right. And my granddad used to do this and never had a problem. So we're doing a little experiment here, and we're going to find out if Grandpa was right. I think he was right. All right, I want to talk about GMO papaya for a minute. A lot of people are under the impression that every papaya out there is a GMO papaya, and that's simply not true. Now, I'm not going to go in there and start telling you all about GMOs and the whole, you know, everything about it, because that's not what this video is about. But I needed to address GMOs for a moment because 80% of the papaya that's grown in Hawaii is a GMO papaya. Okay, so the GMO papaya from Hawaii, there's two types that I'm aware of, okay? Or I should say there's two named varieties, okay? One of them is called Sunup and the other one is called Rainbow. Now, these papayas were developed genetically back in, I believe it was a gentleman named Gonzalez, and he developed it, I believe it was around 1998, it went on the market. That papaya basically is genetically modified to protect the plant from a ring spot virus. It's a nasty virus, similar in some ways. I could say, I could make an analogy, if you know what citrus greening is with our citrus in Florida and in some other states, it basically just really kills the tree little by little, and it really deforms the fruit, makes it nasty. It gets these spots all over the leaves, and it gets these ring spots all over the actual fruit, and it just was decimating the crop. What they did is they basically took a little piece of the DNA of the virus itself. The virus was inserted into the papaya, into the DNA of the papaya, thus creating a plant that was inoculated. By having put the virus in, it inoculated the plant from the virus. Now, that's the simplest explanation I can give. I'm not a scientist, that's my understanding. If I didn't explain it right and you know better than me, go ahead and put a comment. My concern is two concerns. Number one concern is, I mean, yeah, people have been eating papaya down there for years, and, you know, how do we know that, you know, they're not being affected? I have no way of knowing. I'm sure that it must be safe. But is it safe in every case? There's probably other things that are being done that are probably not so safe. You hear about the rats that are getting the tumors and the stomach problems and this and that and the other thing. I just don't like the tinkering. I really don't. It concerns me. I think it concerns all of us, and we should all really be sure that we want to go that route. And unfortunately, that route seems to be the way things are going. And I don't always feel comfortable with that, and I'm very much against the whole genetic modification. Again, that's another topic for another day. Right now, we'll get back to the papaya tree, okay? So the papaya tree itself, this papaya tree, organically grown, no genetic modification, no ring spot virus issues. Everything I do to this tree is organic, and it's looking great, and my fruit looks amazing. So I'm pretty happy because I know what I'm eating here, okay? That is the benefit of growing your own food. You control what you're doing until such time as the government tells you you can't do that. And that's where I think all of us should have a problem. I know I will if anybody tells me that I can't do something like grow my own food. If you want to leave a comment about what I just said, please go ahead and leave that in the notes down there in the bottom, okay? One other thing, if I haven't already mentioned, if you like the channel, if you like what I'm saying, if you don't like what I'm saying and you want to learn more about me and what I do and what I talk about, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And if you like what I said, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like it, then go ahead and give me a thumbs down. Papaya tree, full sun, very important, okay? Regular nutrition. Every 2 weeks, you need to give it great compost or your best organic fertilizer. Literally every 2 weeks. You want to keep it healthy, that's what you have to do. One more thing, you want to control the insects? Yes, definitely want to control the insects. Neem oil works great, okay? Every couple of weeks. Just make sure you don't spray neem oil in the middle of a hot sunny day because you're going to mess everything up. You're going to burn all the leaves because it's an oil, okay? You can also use a product called Azamax, A-Z-A-M-A-X. You also have spinosad. You have a multitude of organic products that you could use. You can even make your own products. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm trying to give you a better appreciation of the understanding of the flowers, a little bit of information on growing, and I also want you to understand the importance of the genetic modification, what's happening with it, and to kind of look into that and make up your own mind. You know, you could agree and I could disagree with you, and I think we could still be friends. I hope we can. Hey, we'll see you on the next video. Keep growing, okay? Hope you enjoyed this. Be good.